It's time to move forward. The ice rattled in Miles Trenton's glass as he savored another sip of whiskey. His gaze sweeping over the crowd of elegantly attired guests chatting in his living room. The celebration buzzed with laughter and lively conversations. Yet Miles found himself feeling strangely disconnected from the vibrant atmosphere. He focused on his wife, Lana, positioned across the room, captivating a gathering of guests with her dazzling smile and lively movements. There was an unsettling feeling in the air. Miles felt an inexplicable sensation stirring within him, a persistent unease that had intensified over the past few weeks. Lana's late nights at the office, her whispered phone conversations, the increasing emotional chasm between them, all culminated in a reality he was reluctant to confront. Earth to Miles. "You seem ready to interrogate that whiskey glass." A voice interrupted his musings. Miles glanced over to find Vanessa Adler, his close friend and fellow lawyer, observing him with a quizzical raised eyebrow. He managed a smile, his mind occupied with thoughts of work. Vanessa let out a derisive snort. "At your own gathering? Come on, Miles. What's truly happening?" Just as he was about to respond, a strikingly tall man with distinguished salt and pepper hair made his way toward Lana's group. Miles observed Braden Huxley, the real estate mogul, seamlessly weave himself into the discussion with a polished confidence. Lana's eyes sparkled with delight as she chuckled at Braden's words, her fingers brushing against his arm gently. Miles clenched his jaw. He tossed back the remainder of his whiskey in a single, swift motion. "I need some air," he muttered to Vanessa, placing his glass down and heading towards the patio. The crisp night air refreshed his thoughts. Miles inhaled deeply, attempting to dispel the doubts that gnawed at him. He was a defense attorney, recognized for his keen intellect and skill in assembling evidence. Yet at this moment, he longed to silence that aspect of his mind. "Mr. Trenton," a soft voice broke through his contemplation. Miles glanced over to find Connor Dade, his private investigator, lurking in the shadows. "Connor." Miles gave a slight nod. "What do you have for me?" Connor surveyed the surroundings, ensuring their solitude, before lowering his voice to speak. "I have been monitoring Mr. Huxley's activities as you asked. He has been observed entering your residence on several occasions during your work hours." Miles sensed a sudden lurch in his stomach, yet he maintained a stoic expression. "How often?" Connor responded that there had been at least 5 in the past 2 weeks. "Consistently within your regular office hours." Miles nodded, his thoughts already in a whirlwind. "Continue to explore. I desire to learn all there is to know. Their destinations, their activities, their conversations. Explore every possibility." Connor nodded and slipped away into the shadows, leaving Miles to grapple with his own thoughts. He lingered there, gazing at the meticulously kept lawn, his hands clutching the patio railing with such intensity that his knuckles turned pale. As he finally pivoted to re-enter, his expression remained an unwavering facade of tranquility. Yet within, a tempest was gathering. The celebration went on, yet Miles observed the space with a fresh perspective. He observed the quiet exchanges between Lana and Braden, the way they appeared to be drawn to one another, even amidst conversations with others. Every observation felt like a further blow to the foundation of his marriage. As the evening progressed, Miles found himself seated at a table with a few colleagues, among them Vanessa, in the midst of a conversation regarding a recent high-profile case. Braden approached, a smug grin plastered across his face. "What a lively gathering, Trenton," Braden remarked, his tone laced with insincerity. "Your spouse undoubtedly has a talent for captivating an audience." Miles sensed the atmosphere grow heavier with tension. He glanced at Braden, his expression revealing none of the fury simmering within him. "She certainly does," he responded with a calm demeanor. Braden leaned in, his voice soft yet distinct, ensuring that everyone at the table could catch his words. "Your spouse will be spending an evening with me." The table grew quiet, every gaze was fixed on Miles. Anticipating his response, he sensed Vanessa's tension beside him, poised to step in if needed. Miles locked eyes with Braden, his tone chilling and utterly grave. "You have 30 seconds to exit, or I will proceed with consequences." Braden's complexion faded to a ghostly hue. He stood tall, yet his confidence began to wane beneath Miles' steady gaze. For a brief instant, it appeared he might confront Miles. Yet the instinct for self-preservation ultimately prevailed. Braden muttered a curse under his breath as he turned and navigated through the crowd, making his way to the exit. After that, the party swiftly started to break up, with guests whispering to one another about what they had seen. Miles sat still, leisurely enjoying his drink as though the world around him had come to a standstill. Vanessa drew nearer. "Miles, could you clarify what just happened?" He replied, his voice flat. "Just taking out the trash." With the final guest's departure, Miles stood in the living room, now just him and Lana, enveloped in a quiet stillness. She lingered by the fireplace, her hands twisting anxiously. "Miles, I can explain," she started, but he interrupted her with a lifted hand. "Hold on to it, Lana. I possess all knowledge." Lana's expression fell apart. "Honestly, Miles, that was an error. I had no intention of doing that." "To what end?" Miles cut in, his tone cutting through the air. "To mislead another man in our shared space. To deceive me directly for weeks. To embarrass me in front of our friends and colleagues." Lana's face was wet with tears. "I apologize. I deeply apologize. Could we have a conversation about this? Could we attempt to resolve this?" Miles observed her intently, his expression inscrutable. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a sense of calm and control. "You will receive precisely what is rightfully yours, Lana. However, don't for a moment believe that I will grant you forgiveness." Fear filled Lana's eyes as she grasped the full extent of her actions. "What is happening? What will you do next?" Miles averted his gaze from her, striding purposefully toward a study. "You'll see," he remarked casually, glancing back as he departed, leaving Lana solitary in the vacant room. In his study, Miles indulged in another whiskey and ignited a cigar. He reclined in his leather chair, gazing at the wall while drawing on the cigar, his thoughts swirling. Lana's betrayal was an unforgivable act, and he was resolute in ensuring that neither she nor Braden would escape without facing the consequences. He reached for his phone and called Connor. "Connor," he instructed as the investigator picked up the call, "I need you to delve further into Braden Huxley's life. Transactions, monetary documentation, interpersonal connections, all of it. This situation goes beyond the mere affair, and I am determined to uncover the truth behind it." "Understood, Mr. Trenton," Connor acknowledged. "I will attend to it promptly." Miles ended the call and reclined in his chair, exhaling a cloud of cigar smoke upwards towards the ceiling. Ideas were already blossoming in his mind, concepts emerging and evolving. Lana and Braden were blissfully unaware of the impending events that awaited them. As the first rays of dawn began to peek through the study window, Miles rose and adjusted his tie with a meticulous touch. He had tasks to complete, and he would ensure that both Lana and Braden would come to rue the day they chose to defy him. Miles Trenton held no faith in the concept of forgiveness. He held a conviction that was equally frigid, methodical, and ruthless, and he was on the verge of demonstrating precisely what that entailed. The morning sun streamed through the blinds of Miles Trenton's downtown office, creating elongated shadows that danced across his desk. He reclined in his chair, fingers interlaced as he absorbed the words of the man opposite him. "Braden Huxley is a snake," Zane exclaimed, his expression contorted with revulsion. "For years, he's been sabotaging my deals. Yet I've never managed to gather evidence of any wrongdoing on his part." Miles leaned in, his gaze intense. With a grin, Zane slid a thick folder across the desk. "At last, I have something to share. I have been receiving information from my insider for months now. Manipulated accounts, corrupt officials, the whole 9 yards." Miles sifted through the documents, his imagination already igniting with potential scenarios. He raised his gaze to Zane. "Who is your source?" "Tessa Monroe," Zane responded, emerging talent in Braden's organization. "She's been eager to dismantle him from within." Miles nodded, a strategy beginning to take shape. "I must have a direct conversation with her and arrange a meeting in a private location." As Zane departed, Miles reached for his phone. "Connor, please confirm some details for me and continue to explore Braden's personal life. I seek to uncover every hidden secret within this closet." The following day, Miles encountered Tessa Monroe in a serene cafe located on the fringes of the city. She appeared more youthful than he had anticipated, her sharp eyes reflecting a no-nonsense attitude. "Mr. Trenton," she said, gripping his hand with confidence, "I trust you grasp the risk involved in our meeting. Miles nodded, speaking in a hushed tone. I certainly do, Ms. Monroe, and I promise it will not be for naught. Share all the details you have regarding Braden's operations. For the next hour, Tessa intricately detailed a convoluted scheme of deceit and misappropriation. Miles absorbed every word, occasionally seeking further explanation. What is the reason behind this action? He inquired at last. What's the reason for activating Braden at this moment? Tessa's gaze turned steely. Due to his predatory nature, he manipulates others, casts them aside, and believes he is beyond reproach. It's time for someone to demonstrate that he isn't. Miles offered a wry smile. On that point, Ms. Monroe, we share the same perspective. In the weeks that followed, Miles dedicated himself fully, meticulously constructing a case against Braden. He collaborated with Zane and Tessa, collecting evidence and arranging witnesses. Throughout it all, he kept up an appearance of normalcy at home with Lana. One evening, as they sat across from each other at the dinner table, Lana finally brought up the topic they had both been skirting around. Miles, she said with a hint of uncertainty, I realize that things have been tough between us. But I was hoping we could discuss how to move forward, how to find a way to reconcile. Miles gazed at her, his expression an unwavering facade of tranquility. Absolutely, Lana, I've been reflecting quite a bit as well. A glimmer of hope shone in Lana's eyes. Miles nodded, savoring a sip of his wine. I've experienced this, and I believe it's essential for us to proceed gradually and restore trust. Lana extended her hand across the table, taking hold of his. Indeed, without a doubt, I will go to any lengths. Miles, I assure you. As Lana squeezed his hand, Miles was enveloped in a chilling sense of resolve. He smiled, though the expression seemed to fall short of illuminating his eyes. It's wonderful to hear that, Lana, truly delighted. The following day, Miles set the next stage of his scheme in motion. He summoned his connections, disseminated meticulously designed rumors, and ensured that the murmurs of Lana's affair found their way to the appropriate listeners. In just a few days, the calls on Lana's phone started to dwindle. Clients have cancelled their appointments, offering unclear justifications. Her social circle, once lively and engaging, started to dwindle. I find it difficult to comprehend, Lana remarked one evening, her voice tinged with frustration. It feels as though I'm being overlooked by everyone. Even the Hendersons have decided to cancel their anniversary party booking. Miles pretended to care. How peculiar. Perhaps this is merely a lull in activity. I have confidence that improvements are on the horizon. However, the situation failed to improve. As the weeks went by, Lana's business kept facing challenges. Miles observed her escalating desperation, as she made frantic calls and sent urgent emails filled with pleas. One evening, he caught her in a conversation with Braden on the phone. Please, Braden, she implored, her voice quivering. I require your assistance. My enterprise is crumbling. I find myself at a loss for what steps to take next. A moment of silence lingered in the air. Yet, I believed we shared something truly unique. As she ended the call, tears streaming down her face, Miles withdrew to his study. He poured himself a whiskey, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips. Everything was aligning perfectly. The following morning, Miles got a call from Connor. Mr. Trenton, Connor exclaimed, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. I have something significant to share. Braden has been misappropriating funds from his own company. Countless dollars funneled into hidden offshore accounts. Miles held on firmly. Outstanding job, Connor. Share all the details you have with me. It's time to take action. Armed with the last crucial piece of evidence, Miles initiated his carefully crafted plan. A lawsuit was filed against Braden Huxley representing multiple former clients, claiming fraud and embezzlement. The day of the trial dawned, and the courtroom brimmed with people. Miles stood before the judge, his voice resonating with clarity and assurance, as he presented the case against Braden. Your Honor, he stated, the evidence will reveal that Mr. Huxley has participated in a deliberate scheme of deceit, misleading not just his clients, but also his employees and business associates. With each witness that stepped forward, Braden's complexion became more and more ashen. Tessa Monroe's testimony was especially incriminating, revealing insider information about Braden's unlawful actions. During cross-examination, Miles struck with precision. Mr. Huxley, he remarked, his tone intriguingly serene. Could you clarify the inconsistencies in your company's financial records? Particularly, the vast sums of money that appeared to have evaporated without a trace. Braden faltered, perspiration trickling down his brow. I'm not quite sure what you mean. This is merely a misinterpretation. Miles stepped up to the witness stand, clutching a pile of papers. An unfortunate miscommunication. These bank records reveal transfers to offshore accounts associated with you. Are you suggesting that these are forgeries? Mr. Huxley? The courtroom was enveloped in a heavy silence as Braden's lawyer leaned in, urgently whispering in his ear. At last, Braden sank into a state of resignation. No, he mumbled. They are authentic. As the judge commanded the freezing of Braden's assets, awaiting further inquiry, Miles locked eyes with Zhang in the gallery. The entrepreneur offered him a discreet gesture of endorsement. Outside the courthouse, a throng of reporters encircled Miles. Mr. Trenton, someone shouted, what's it like to take down one of the city's leading businessmen? Miles stood before the cameras, his demeanor solemn. This is not intended to diminish anyone. It revolves around fairness. Everyone is subject to the law, regardless of their wealth or connections. Amidst the frenzy of reporters seeking additional details, Miles noticed Lana positioned at the periphery of the gathering. Her expression was one of pure astonishment and dread. He strode by her in silence, abandoning her to confront the repercussions of her choices on her own. That evening, Miles reclined in his study, relishing a glass of scotch. His phone vibrated, signaling a message from Connor. Braden attempted to escape but was apprehended at the airport. Miles permitted a subtle smile of contentment to grace his lips. The first phase has been successfully concluded. Braden Huxley had reached the end. However, he still had more to say. Not even close. The following morning, Lana discovered divorce papers awaiting her on the kitchen table. Miles observed him with a detached gaze while she sifted through the pages, her hands trembling slightly. Miles, she implored, tears cascading down her cheeks. I kindly ask you to refrain from this action. We can find a solution to this. I am willing to do whatever it takes. Miles locked eyes with her, his gaze icy and unyielding. That opportunity has passed. Lana, your decision has been made. With tears streaming down her face, Lana crumbled, while Miles stepped out of the house, shutting the door with a decisive thud. He met with Zane to talk about the future of Braden's now defunct company. The mechanisms of justice and retribution kept grinding onward, and Miles Trenton was the one pulling the strings. Forgiveness was not an option, only repercussions awaited. The morning sun stretched its golden rays, creating elongated shadows over the pristine lawn of Braden Huxley's mansion. Yellow crime scene tape danced in the wind while federal agents flooded the property, carrying boxes filled with evidence. Miles Trenton stood across the street, observing the scene with a detached sense of pleasure. His phone vibrated with a sudden buzz. It was Connor. Mr. Trenton. Connor's voice crackled through the speaker, a blend of static and urgency that drew attention. Braden Huxley has been apprehended. He was apprehended at LAX while attempting to board a private jet bound for Mexico. Miles permitted a subtle smile to grace his lips. Outstanding job, Connor. Keep me updated on any progress. As he ended the call, a sleek black SUV glided to a stop beside him. The window slid open, exposing Zane Caldwell's somber expression. What a sight, Zane commented, gesturing towards the mansion. Miles pivoted to confront him. Certainly. I hope all is unfolding according to your expectations. Zane's lips twisted into a sly smile. Indeed, my team is already advancing into the remnants of Huxley's empire. By this time next week, everything will belong to me. In Tessa Monroe's office, Miles inquired, arching an eyebrow. Receiving a well-earned promotion. Zane responded, she will take charge of our new acquisitions department. A well-deserved recognition for her dedication. Miles gave a satisfied nod. Excellent. She embraced a bold gamble. It's only just that she attained the advantages. As Zane's car drove off, Miles cast a final glance at the decaying remnants of Braden Huxley's existence. The second phase has been finalized. At last, the moment for the grand finale had arrived. In a modest apartment tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, Lana Trenton found herself perched on a worn-out couch, her gaze fixed vacantly on the flickering screen of the television. Reports flooded the news about Braden's arrest and the downfall of his business empire. The sudden knock at the door caught her off guard. She unsealed it to discover a courier presenting an envelope. Lana Trenton, the courier inquired. She nodded, her hands trembling as she took the envelope. Once the door clicked shut, she yanked it back open. Within the envelope lay the divorce papers, each line meticulously completed in Miles' exacting script. Everything was in place, only her signature remained to complete the task. Lana collapsed onto the floor, her tears flowing freely down her cheeks. With trembling fingers, she picked up her phone and dialed Miles' number. Miles picked up on the third ring. Absolutely, Miles. If you would be so kind. Lana wept bitterly. May we have a conversation? In person. I recognize that I have erred greatly. Yet my feelings for you remain strong. Surely, we can find a solution to this. Right? A lengthy silence lingered on the other end of the line. At last, Miles uttered a word, his tone completely flat. Understood. Let's rendezvous at Griffith Observatory in an hour. An hour later, Lana found herself at the observatory's railing, gazing out over the vast expanse of Los Angeles. Footsteps echoed behind her, prompting her to turn and find Miles nearing, his expression unreadable. Miles, she uttered, her voice heavy with feeling. Thank you for being here. He lingered next to her, his eyes locked onto the distant horizon. You expressed a desire to converse. Go ahead and speak. Lana inhaled deeply. I understand that my actions were beyond redemption. However, Miles, our time together has been extensive. We crafted a life together. Is there a way we can recover something from this situation? Miles pivoted to confront her, his gaze icy. What is there to salvage? Lana, the faith you dismantled, the promises you discarded, what remains to be salvaged? Lana implored, her hand outstretched towards him, filled with longing. Miles withdrew. Love, he derided, does not betray. Affection remains truthful. What you're experiencing at this moment, Lana, isn't love. It's the dread of confronting the repercussions of your choices. Lana's expression twisted in anguish. Miles, if you would be so kind, I am willing to do whatever it takes. Simply let me know how I can rectify this situation. Miles gazed at her intently, his face a mask of mystery. He then delved into his jacket and retrieved a pen. Do you wish to correct this? He extended the pen, his hand steady. Please sign the divorce papers. Step away. That's the sole option available to you at this moment. Lana gazed intently at the pen. Then she turned her gaze to Miles' face, looking for any trace of the man she had once known. Finding none, she gradually withdrew the pen from his grasp. Is this truly what you desire? She inquired, her voice scarcely above a murmur. Miles responded quickly and decisively. It's the path you selected, Lana. The instant you chose to undermine all that we created side by side. Lana signed the papers with a trembling hand. As she returned them to Miles, a flicker of hope lingered within her for a last-minute reprieve. A glimmer of hope remained. Yet Miles just slipped the papers back into his jacket. Farewell, Lana, he uttered, pivoting to depart. Miles, Lana cried out, her voice tinged with urgency. Will you find it in your heart to forgive me someday? Miles halted, glancing back over his shoulder. There are certain actions, Lana, that cannot be overlooked. This is among them. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Lana to face the repercussions of her choices. The following morning, Miles found himself in his new office. Having become a partner in Zane Caldwell's burgeoning business empire, he gazed across the city, a landscape that had witnessed the ascent and decline of Braden Huxley, the disintegration of his marriage, and the culmination of a meticulously crafted scheme that had been in progress for months. The sound of a knock at the door broke through his contemplation. It was Vanessa. Hey, she remarked, propping herself against the doorframe. How are you managing? Miles beckoned her to enter. I'm doing well, Vanessa. What reason would there be for me not to be? Vanessa sat opposite him, worry visible on her features. Miles, you've just dismantled one of the city's most influential figures and ended your marriage of 15 years. It's perfectly all right to not be okay, Vanessa responded softly. Miles reclined in his chair, his expression an embodiment of tranquility. What's been completed is now in the past. Braden and Lana have made their decisions. I made sure they confronted the repercussions. What repercussions are you encountering? Miles, Vanessa insisted, For an instant, a brief glimmer of feeling passed over Miles' expression. Yet it vanished just as swiftly as it emerged. The moment I uncovered their betrayal, I confronted the repercussions head-on. All that has transpired since that moment has revolved around the pursuit of justice. Vanessa gave a slow nod. Just remember to stay true to yourself in this, Miles. Retribution possesses an uncanny ability to drain the essence from an individual. Miles wore a smile, yet it failed to illuminate his eyes. Thank you for your thoughtful concern, Vanessa. I have a clear understanding of my identity and my purpose. As Vanessa departed, Miles redirected his gaze to the window. The sun dipped below the horizon in Los Angeles, casting vibrant hues of orange and red across the sky. A fresh chapter unfolded, marking a turning point for the city and for Miles Trenton. A text from an unknown number made his phone buzz. Mr. Trenton, I possess some intriguing information about a particular judge who has been accepting bribes. With keen interest, Miles gazed at the message, a gradual smile unfolding on his face. He crafted a response. Forever. He placed the phone aside and picked up a cigar. As he ignited it, relishing the deep fragrance, Miles contemplated the journey that had brought him to this moment. The treachery, the anguish, the meticulous orchestration of his retribution. He experienced neither regret nor remorse. Instead, he was enveloped in a chilling sense of satisfaction. In this city of angels, Miles Trenton had transformed into something altogether different. A powerful entity, delivering his unique form of justice. He was only beginning. The sun sank beneath the horizon, casting the city into a soft twilight glow. Yet for Miles, a fresh day was beginning. A day devoid of forgiveness, lacking in mercy, a day where every action bore its weight, and he would be the one to see that debts were settled completely. He reached for his phone once more, inputting Connor's number. Connor, I have a new task for you. Shall we arrange a meeting? As he ended the call, Miles cast a final glance at the deepening twilight. In this intricate dance of influence and vengeance, he had claimed his triumph. He was determined to remain in that state, regardless of the consequences. I appreciate everyone who dedicated their time to engage with today's narratives. If you found it enjoyable, I would appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. If you haven't done so yet, we welcome your insights on the events in the comments below. Be well.